Melanie Walker.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's a little after 2:30, so let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'm going to go ahead and start with a roll call first. Committee member Donnell. Committee member Summerfield. Committee member Falzone. And committee member Binkley. Also point out that we do have Tony Boyd, our Public Works Director, John Moe, our City Engineer, who's online, and Jason Wu, our Chief of Police, attending today. Before we get into the content of the meeting, just a little bit of a housekeeping item. As you're likely aware, we are missing a chair and a vice chair. We haven't met, this committee has not met in several months, probably over a year. So just in terms of housekeeping today, Rosenberg's Rules of Order allow us to elect a temporary chair in situations like this. Since I'm running the meeting now, I'd like to go ahead and propose that we nominate Harry Summerfield as temporary chair to run today's meeting. And if I could get a first and a second on that, that would be great. It's been first and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Seeing none. Okay, thank you for that. I will go ahead and turn things back over to you, Harry, as the chair for items 1 and 2 on the agenda, whenever you're ready.
Now you can
You
hear
really
me.
have to speak into the mic, so
No, the green light has.
try pulling with a couple inches.
Got it.
There.
We have the first of the two issues that we have here is the consideration and possible action regarding removal of 2 parking stalls. Okay. I'm new with this. I got it. Before we do the 2 things on the agenda, I've been told that we need to talk about the open forum first. So this is an opportunity for any citizen to briefly address the Traffic and Safety and Circulation Committee on any matter that does not appear on tonight's or today's agenda. Upon being recognized by the chair, please state your name, address, and limit your oral statement to no more than 3 minutes. Matters that appear to warrant a more lengthy presentation or committee consideration may be agendized for further discussion at a subsequent meeting. Anyone want to speak?
We do have about 7 or 8 participants right now. And just to be clear, this is a special meeting. I don't believe we have we do have an open forum. My mistake. So yeah, anyone in the room or online is permitted to talk for 3 minutes. And looking online right now, I see we have 5 attendees and no hands raised, so I don't think we have any requests.
So we'll go forward to the scheduled items.
Correct.
The first one is the consideration and possible action regarding removal of 2 parking stalls fronting 230 and 240 Madrona Avenue. Do we hear from the chair? Subject.
Yes, so thank you. I'll go ahead and introduce this item today. Very briefly, there's a request from the property owners of 230 and 240 Madrona to modify the parking stalls near their property. They are specifically asking to remove the 2 spaces. DPW, just as a bit of background, sometime I believe it was around 2018 or 19, ended up meeting with those property owners. There was a similar request but the request previously was for access and egress. They were having a hard time based on the layout, getting in and out of their garages. We looked at the situation. It did not come to the Traffic Safety Committee. It wasn't elevated to that level, but we did make some slight modifications to those parking boxes, mainly shortening the two that were in front of their properties and reducing the width of the parking stall that was opposite the road. So since that time, we really haven't had too many complaints or any requests from the fire department or police department to take a second look at that. I think generally it was effective. However, we do have this new request from the property owners. Again, if you read the email that, or excuse me, if you saw the reference in the staff report, they're mainly having a hard time, again, still navigating in and out of those two garages. They're also citing some other safety concerns with regard to the road width. Now that we modified the parking stalls, we did gain some extra road back, but like every place in Belvedere, people don't always park in the white boxes. So according to the property owners, that's still a major issue up there. There was a late correspondence item that was attached to the city, to the agenda from Joe Piazza and his neighbor with a photograph referencing, I'm not sure when the photograph was taken, perhaps they'll comment on that today, but it was referencing the exact situation where he had a full-size with truck parked opposite of 240, which was outside of the parking box, and then another vehicle that was on the other side that was also outside the parking box. The Belvedere Municipal Code requires that we maintain 10 feet of clearance at all times. So when situations like this happen, it reduces obviously the available width for vehicles to pass and creates safety issues along with response time issues with police and fire. So that's the request today for this first item. I'm happy to answer any questions or clarify anything if that's necessary before we get to the public comments on this.
I have I guess one or two questions. I'm trying, in this photo here, the one that's closest to Fern, is the family who lives there requesting, are they one of the people requesting to have that box removed?
Let me go ahead and bring up, I'm going to share my screen. I think
Okay.
that might be easier. And then those folks that are online can see the same thing we're talking about. Give me just a moment. Okay, and this should come up on your screen.
So the Harringtons they're one
So
of those,
I believe the Piazzas here are at 240.
right?
And the Harringtons are the
Okay.
farther black car over there. I don't think that's their car, but that's their address. Those are the two spots that are being proposed by those two property owners to be removed. And again, I'll zoom in here, but you can even see, the vehicle, at least on the left-hand side, when this Google image was taken, is not parked in the white box, which is
So they're
which
the
is a
two most-
problem in Belvedere.
They're the
It's-
two most affected houses and it's their parking, and so that's
Correct.
what they want. Okay.
That's not their. That isn't their car that's.
We'll have a time for public comment.
Okay.
Just give us 1 moment. Thank you. So the question was, is that vehicle parked on the right-hand side, the silver vehicle, is that the Piazza's vehicle? I don't have the answer to that question. I'm sure they could answer. I think they may or may not be online when we go to the public forum.
Where do you want to go from?
Can I ask one more question just before, because it said further on here, you talked about then increasing the size of the boxes across the street. Are you talking about making them wider? It says here, in granting this request, it's also recommended the committee consider increasing the size of the public parking box directly opposite 230 and 240.
That's correct.
You're talking
So,
about making them wider because then there'll
Right.
be room to go around. Okay.
like I said, back in 2018-19, we reduced that width to try and gain back some road width.
Okay.
Yes, this request
So
would
that's
include
part of
widening
the-
that more or
okay.
less back to where it was previously.
But if it's wider, that's also going to infringe on the traffic flow.
Yeah, I think the assumption is if we remove the black and the silver cars, those two parking spaces, we'd have more width for the vehicles to pass on the right. So we gain a little bit back by increasing that parking box on the left. I'll go ahead and switch views, just move up or down the street a little bit. It's always good to have a couple perspectives since we can't meet out there in person.
So you're basically gaining 6 feet on that one side, 2 places.
So this is coming down Madrona. That's Fern, I believe, coming up on the left-hand side over here. You can see just in the distance that there is somebody parked at 240, but 230 is currently empty. You can see it does get pretty tight in this area, and it's a bit of a zigzag for larger trucks to try and maneuver. I do want to point out that this traffic safety committee did meet and generated a report in 2021. That was in January. And there was some input from the fire department and other city departments at that time. This wasn't identified as a major choke point that was, low-hanging fruit on their list. I haven't heard from the fire department where they would consider this a problem, but for some reason or another, it did not elevate to the, to be cited on their choke point list.
Okay.
And Robert, in this image, then the spot on the left would be the one that's removed, right?
Yeah, so that's correct. So it's these two spots. I'm up the street on Madrona looking the opposite direction now. So it would be this spot here. And then where you can see the silver car in the distance, it would be that spot as well. I can move a little bit closer if that would help. The two on the left. How many on the right-hand side? I believe we striped that to be able to handle 3 vehicles, generally 20 feet in length.
The weird spot across the way on Madrona, which goes from here to maybe for a motorcycle. Anyway.
Right. So yeah, if there's no other questions, at your discretion, we can go ahead and open the open forum.
We're happy to open the forum for anyone that wants to make a question or, yes?
Yeah, up to the dais. That's not.
Give us your name and address.
Do this and just go and speak in the mic.
Is that? Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Melanie Walker. My husband and I live next door to the Piazzas at 260. Maybe you could bring this down a little bit further and you can actually see this. There hasn't ever really been a problem as long as I've been living in this house, which is over 23 years now. In 245, if you look at those cars on the right, those spaces were narrowed about 5 years ago. Mr. Piazza and Mr. Anderson slimmed those down. In fact, nobody further down from my house even knew this action was even going to happen until it happened. Mr. Piazza and Mr. Anderson then put spikes up near the curb, and they are still there today. So that anybody trying to get into the lines to park would get their vehicle damaged. And I know one person that has had their vehicle damaged, and that was the person that put the spikes in. Yeah, the gardener, and he can't say anything because he doesn't want to lose his job. And I felt sorry for him. It's never been a problem parking. At 260, and I have 2 spaces in front of my house. And yesterday, my husband and I went out and measured the spaces from where you would have to park inside the lines. These spaces right here are virtually unusable for workers like a gardener or any work that you would need down at your house. Usually there's gardeners. Mr. Anderson has his gardeners there twice a week. Most people have a gardener there once a week. They can't really park there. They usually park in front of my house, which is fine. It's public parking. If you go down a little bit further, there's another set of parking spaces, and I know you know this, when you walk up, and they're very close to Jane's wall. So you have to be a really good driver to kind of eke in there, and you can't put a truck in there. So these spaces are good spaces. We need these spaces. The average age of people on our block now is 80. I just talked to Dr. Jones this morning. He's 97. I know he's amazing. But when I told him about, he goes, "What's this thing about the parking?" I said, "I'm headed on down there." He goes, "I don't want the spaces to go away. You know, we need these spaces. We have elderly people in our neighborhood. And, you know, the day is going to come where all of us are maybe need a nurse or someone to come every day." Mr. Anderson had his nurses parked right on the street and he has parking. So I'm sorry, but we need the spaces. We have 6-bedroom houses and we're not going to be there forever. So where are people going to park? I'm
Thanks.
sorry, it's just, we need them.
Thank you for giving your take.
I'm confused. I'm just confused. Are you talking about those 2 spaces that are talking about being eliminated, or the spaces across the street to make them a little wider? Okay. Okay, okay.
That's it, but they've been there forever.
Do we have any other people that want to make a public comment? Either online or in-house?
Sorry,
See-
yes, we do. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Joe Piazza. Let's see. System's being a little stubborn. I might need to do it from this other computer. Okay, Joe, you can go ahead and speak. You've got 3 minutes if you can hear us.
Okay, sure. Hi. So I'm here with Charlie Harrington. Hello. So the issue, I think, for us is just to go back to what Melanie was saying. There are most of the parking on Madrona between Golden Gate and where Fern intersects is on the north side. I think there were, I counted room for 10 cars, 10 vehicles in that spot. And on the south side, where Charlie and I live, there's only a space between, there's only space in front of his house and space in front of my house. There's another real tiny space on the corner of Golden Gate in Madrona, which is about the size for a golf cart, you know, perhaps it's seldom used. So our thought is that when there's and Melanie said it correctly, there's a lot of pickup trucks and, you know, other sort of commercial vehicles that park on the street. And when there's a commercial vehicle parked in my space and or Charlie's space, and then also across the street where most of the parking is, it is very difficult for any sort of a size vehicle to get down that street. Very difficult. I measured them and I sent a letter to you all. I'm sure you saw the letter. And the picture that I sent along, I think, was very telling in that there were 2 commercial vehicles and the tires were well outside the boundaries of the lines of the parking spaces. And I don't know the width of a fire truck, but I don't think there's a prayer that a fire truck could get by the spaces in front of my house or Charlie's house when there's commercial vehicles parked there. I think it'd be very, you know, very, very difficult. So my thought is, given the fact that there's room for 10 vehicles to be parked on the north side of Madrona, that there really probably isn't any need for the space in front of my house and in front of Charlie's house. There's no space in front of Melanie's house. There's no space to the house next on the other side of Melanie's house, and no space in front of the house on the other side of that house, just in front of Charlie's house and my house. So my sense of it is that all the spaces on the north side of the road. And by the way, there's only one house on Madrona on the north side of the road, and that's Peter Anderson's. You know, Jane's house is a Golden Gate address. I think that's probably it. So I think they're unneeded, and I think the fact that they were made so narrow was a little odd to my thinking, because it doesn't really matter. The cars don't get any more narrow, so they just stick out anyway. So I think it would be wise and safer if those spaces were removed. And then finally, you know, when Charlie and his wife Carly pulled out of their garage, and he could speak for himself. as I said in my letter, you really can't see whether a car is coming from west to east in his case until most of the cars outside on the street. And when my wife Barbara and I pull out of our garage and our parking space, our whatever those things are called, carports, we can't see a car coming east to west until we're practically in the middle of the road. So I think there's a real safety issue there as well. You want to answer
Yeah,
that?
could I have 3 minutes as well?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Charlie Harrington, 230 Madrona. So I just want to corroborate and agree with a lot of what Joe said. In fact, all of it. I've lived here for coming up on 2 years. I have a young family, a daughter. We have a son on the way. So we're a small family, growing family. And I think Joe articulated our major concern, which is pulling out. There's a huge blind spot, especially when some of these larger vehicles are there, and they're absolutely not fitting within that box. So I don't want to take my full 3 minutes here. I want to give time back for discussion or if there's other follow-up questions. What I would say is about the site, the spots on the north side. If these spots were to be removed, I could see those things being widened so that more vehicles could fit in there. And I think that would make more sense if these two were removed. So for us, we really believe this is a safety issue. I think Joe's point about especially when there's large vehicles, it seems to be less than 10 feet wide when these large vehicles are there. So we really appreciate the consideration here. And I think that an extension of those other spots to be a little bit wider could meet the demand. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I have a question myself on this, and that is, what's the possibility, instead of having parking spaces on either side of the street, if they were only allowed on one side of the street and more spaces were added so that
Well, one of those spaces, Mr. Piazza, has already eliminated. And those are the ones directly in front of his garage. And that's why I wanted to put up that picture, to actually see where the garage was and how wide that area was. Because he can pull in very well right into a space, since they eliminated the space right behind his garage or his area next to the garage where he can park the second car.
There's no room on the north side, where the one area is.
Sandy, you know where that is.
Here, there's, that they just about widening it, and then it goes down to about the Turner's house, and across from the Turner's house, there are about 4 more spaces there. And then there's that one really awkward one that's halfway off the street on the ground. But there really is no other place to enlarge the park, to make more parking spaces on this.
thank you.
Well, the width there, as you were saying, as you were asking about if they were all on one side, they shortened the width about 3 or 4 years ago. I didn't get a notice that was going to happen, and neither did the Turners. But they shortened the width.
The width, I'm assuming, was shortened so that they could be sure that fire equipment and so forth could get by.
I know for a fact that they want to eliminate all the parking spaces there because it was in front of Mr. Anderson's house, and he did not want parking in front of his house. I know that, he told me that himself, hence the spikes. Okay, well, I'm basically addressing his question.
Thank you. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, so I think in the staff report, it's listed, generally staff agrees with the request from the property owners to remove the 2 locations, provided we end up increasing the size of the width of the parking boxes opposite the street. Belvedere doesn't have a full-time code enforcement or parking officer, so it's really hard for us to establish a parking zone like this that is very narrow and then have people comply. We don't have people going up there on a daily basis from an enforcement standpoint, writing tickets if you're a foot or 2 over the white line. So, that is generally a concern of staff. And when we find opportunities to be able to widen the road like this, that is, at the request of the property owners, we generally try and find a way to make that happen.
Can you put a recommendation? You thought about the garage?
Mhm. So, yeah. Let me understand that request. So, right. Right. Mhm. Yeah, we have considered that, we'll hear more about sightline distances, but that is one of the issues that came up for this one. It's a little bit, by putting I guess, the traveled way on the inside of the corner there, with a lot of those tall vegetation that's growing on the opposite side, that was a little bit of a concern about having traffic pushed up right against that edge, having an oncoming car. Correct.
The other thing that comes to mind, at least to me, is, um, I guess it's a property owner issue, is couldn't these spaces be widened into the hillside more so that the
Hmm.
the big vehicles and so forth can go by easily? Or are the property owners that would be involved in this don't want any, a foot of their property removed? What's,
Yeah, I guess, we've never considered that as an option. Generally, when I have come in situations like this in the past from working, with Tony in Public Works, people don't want their property infringed upon. My understanding is that the property boundaries are very close to the road edge in this location. If the city were to install some kind of a retaining wall and increase the parking boxes there, we'd have to have an easement agreement from the property owner. Then the sites would have to be available for the public. I think there's a lot of hurdles to be able to make that.
plus the cost?
And the cost would be pretty high. If we have an alternative, it might be better to consider that first. Good question, though.
So if we have no other input, I guess it comes back here to the members of the committee to vote on what they feel is the way to go here. Yes or no?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a fair question. If I could clarify what I meant before, maybe that would be helpful. Really we look at from when we do get a request from residents that comes to the city, we look at from the aspect of safety. Is there an issue here that could be improved upon or needs to be corrected that's an immediate danger to life or health? I'm not sure if this one rises to that. It's certainly an inconvenience issue. And if people are behaving poorly in terms of parking, it's going to end up either blocking the road or restricting access. So it does become a choke point in that situation. I think we'd probably, this section and, maybe 15 or 20 other locations on Belvedere Island are known choke points within the community. So when it does come up and we have a little bit of support, we do like to try and make improvements for safety.
I entertain a vote.
And just to be clear today too, the committee's charter, I'll go ahead and look at this section here, but the implied authority under the committee's charter is that, we're not necessarily passing a motion or, directing staff. However, you are making a recommendation that staff, either support one alternative or the other. It is within the city's managers, my discretion to be able to make adjustments to the parking boxes. That's in the municipal code. So effectively, you'd be giving us a recommendation to proceed with one course or the other.
My biggest concern is circulation, and from these photos and walking up there a lot, I do worry that large trucks get.
Well, certainly fire equipment and so forth.
If you're
Sorry, you have to really speak into that mic very close.
I would say my concern is with circulation, and just from these photos and walking this street a lot, I do worry about trucks being parked in both sides of the street and having ample room and wide berth for vehicles to get through, especially fire vehicles. Even if that's history, it doesn't mean that that's right.
Any other comments?
Well, I've been stuck at that point before, but it's been delivery trucks or, whatever. And if people can't, if the one on the north side, it makes it almost impossible for anyone to use that space legally, then, I think this might be a good idea to remove the other two and widen this.
Is that the course of action?
It is generally the committee would take an opportunity, everyone would give their feedback and their thoughts. And if there's consensus on a recommended action, you could simply state that.
And can I'm going to ask you one more question, Robert. I know the, across the way, and maybe Mr. Piazza is still on the phone, but I know that there is a question when, right across from their house, they don't want to be blocked by coming out of their driveway and hitting a car across the way. But I wonder if there's a possibility of, if these two places are taken, if that one other place could be reinstated. I don't.
Which other space?
Well, there's a right across from the piazzas.
Put another one there.
Yeah.
From the, and it might be good for him to answer, from their carport, right across, there's a space that was eliminated there because for them to back out and turn, and if the space on their side is removed, is there a chance that reinstating
Okay.
that space, would that be a it's the public, it's nowhere for that. So, but
Yeah.
I'm upset about this because we have issues. I don't understand why people aren't getting that.
I think, yes, we could look into.
just look at,
the
look into it.
possibility of bringing that other site back, the other parking stall back. Yeah, I don't know the measurements. Obviously, our engineer would have to go out there and see if it's feasible.
So we have no definitive answer for this tonight. Is
Well, I
that
think
cor-
the definitive answer could be, we could say, yes, let's eliminate those two spots and look at the possibility of adding one more on the other side.
With what you said earlier, which is extending these spots across the street so that they're wider.
Yeah, extending the width of
Yeah.
those. Yeah. Okay,
I think we have
Okay.
consensus on that.
Taking the spikes
Yeah.
out.
great. I think I'm clear. Are you, Tony, clear enough? Yep. Okay. All right, thank you.
So you want to go on to the second question? Public,
Yes, item 2 on the agenda.
eucalyptus.
The next item on the agenda is a petition from several residents on Eucalyptus Road to increase a no parking zone at the intersection point of Eucalyptus and Golden Gate. And I think it was helpful for me previously to bring up a shared screen, so I'll do the same again. Just one moment. Okay. So specifically, the request from the petition was to extend the red zone that is currently, as you can see here on the right-hand side on Golden Gate. I'll progress up the road a bit. It extends to about this segment here, 25, 30 feet or so into Eucalyptus Road. The reason for the request, as I understand it, is kind of twofold. Number one, I think during construction, things were probably, there was obviously a lot of construction happening on Eucalyptus Road, and we had vehicles that were parking, perhaps abusing the parking in that area, and not leaving 10 feet of clearance. That's one issue. The other issue is just in general, the sight lines at this area make it so that when you're either approaching Eucalyptus from Golden Gate or you're exiting Eucalyptus, as you can see, the road is very heavily crested there. If you're a good behaving driver and you're tucked in right next to that stop sign, when you see a car that's barreling up on the left-hand side, as often they are coming up that hill, making that crest, it doesn't really, it can be scary. And I've heard some reports about that. So really, I think that's at the heart of this request here is really just a safety and sight line and visibility issue. The parking is certainly contributing to that. So just to address this, this request and this petition, the city engineer, myself, and the Public Works Director, Tony, met out on site. And I think, as it's mentioned in the staff report, applied 2 criteria to this site. Really, the ones that are most important are the 10-foot right-of-way that must be maintained at all times. That's, as I said, established in our Bellevue Municipal Code. When you look at from that criteria, the road width, as you can see on the screen here, from let's say curb to curb, that's actually usable area, is anywhere between 13 feet to 17 feet. And that's for the duration of Eucalyptus Road. I'll go ahead and swing back. That's for the duration of Eucalyptus Road, past the house on the right here, which I believe is number 2, all the way down to,
It's like being on a roller coaster.
it is a bit of a roller coaster, I apologize. All the way down to this car here parked in the distance. Right there, the road starts to widen out a bit, and that's what I believe is to be a legitimate parking stall. You can also see that, there's some physical barriers here, which prevent people from parking along the edge of the road. There's a berm on the right-hand side, and again, a curb and a berm on the left-hand side. So this section between, those 2 berms is actually very narrow, I think 13 feet or less. So it really self-selects, so there's no reasonable contractor that's going to park there and, with 4 feet of road left going to block it. I don't think in our determination from a parking standpoint and leaving 10 feet of width, if the request is to put in the red zone, it really doesn't make sense in that area. However, everything from really this point on, all the way up to the top of Eucalyptus, like I said, there's either a road width issue where we don't have 10 feet of clearance if there's vehicles parked, or you have garages where residents are entitled to be able to pull in and out of. You don't want to obviously put, establish parking zones or effectively allow parking in those areas. And that's a real likelihood if we do have construction in the area that's going to be happening at some point. We'll likely get some vehicles that try and utilize these parking spaces on the right-hand side on this radius. So that's one criteria. The other criteria that we evaluated was the sightline distance. And there's some information in the staff report about this. Again, there's some engineering criteria. I'm sure if John Moe wants to jump on now, or if you have detailed questions about it, he could answer that. But really, the speed limit on this road is 15 miles an hour. There's guidelines in place where if you have 15 miles an hour, you have to have speed zones. You have to have 100 feet in front of you to be able to see without any obstructions. Because the road is crested so heavily at that intersection point, that impacts that sightline distance. So when you measure it out, the red zone needs to be extended really for majority of this curb section on the left-hand side all the way to the end of the curb right before this entryway.
Well, that's 2 eucalyptus.
That's 2 eucalyptus, correct. So I think that's the basis of the request, the analysis that we provided. I think that's a good summary of it, and be happy to take questions, or if there's any questions for the city engineer or public works director, they're available as well.
There was also some signage involved in your recommendation?
Yeah, thank you for the reminder on that one. We did consider red curbs on both sides from a maintenance standpoint, and as you can see, the hillside is starting to erode over that curb. There's a good chance that would end up, not being appreciated by the public works guys that have to go out there and paint it every few years. So signage was preferred on that uphill side as opposed to red curb.
Can I just make one clarification just to make sure this doesn't get lost? Because this petition here was, I think it's the same issue that exists right now, but the petition was started when 105 Golden Gate Avenue, the project there was approved, and all the people on Golden Gate, and that project has not started yet. And so I just don't want this to get lost from the planning department, that this petition was started in order to control the construction vehicles once 105 Golden Gate Avenue gets started. It's the same issue, but again, just to make sure that planning, this
Yeah.
isn't with that.
That's a good point. I believe that was the impetus over there.
Yeah. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for, impetus. Thank you.
Well, it seems like this one is, there's no other way to go than the recommendation. Any other comments from the committee?
There was one other sign I know that you, that would encourage limiting traffic on the street. The, I mean, you can't say it's a private street, but I mean, wasn't there some comment about
Yeah, that was
local traffic only or?
right.
that-
It is a public road, although, you know, it's a little sticky when you start getting into some of the historic administrative record on Eucalyptus Road about how that looks. But yeah, generally it is open to the public. Staff, as we were out there looking at solutions, thought, you know, maybe there's an opportunity at the same time to consider some better signage, trying to limit large vehicles and, you know, inform drivers that the turnaround points aren't great on that street.
Is it common to see cars parked where you want to do the red zone now?
So yeah, and maybe I can back up a bit. The red zone that was on Golden Gate as you approached Eucalyptus actually used to have a break in it. We're not sure why that was the case, but you would have
Jim Smith.
you'd have vehicles that were parked in that open spot, really impacting that sightline visibility. So as generally a safety issue, again, didn't elevate it to the traffic safety committee. We closed the gap in that to make sure there'd be no parking on the right-hand side. So I'd say previously, yeah, there was always cars parked in that open spot. Personally, I can't comment on whether or not we've had a lot of vehicles parked in that first segment where we're proposing to extend the red curb. Maybe we could hear from the property owners on that one.
So if you don't want to paint red curb the whole distance, you put a sign at the beginning and at the end saying no parking between these two signs? Is that what you?
So for the left, so as you're approaching Eucalyptus Road from Golden Gate, about to enter it, yeah, the left-hand side where the hillside slopes down steeply, it's more effective to put signage there. And then for the right-hand side, it is also very steep with road edge and other problems, rocks and other things off that road edge. It wouldn't be feasible to put signage there. So we'd end up painting the curb red for the right-hand side.
Okay, so it's a little of each.
It's a little bit of each, correct?
There are a number of residents from the.
If any residents would like to speak, please step forward.
I'm not sure
Have to
that's
push the
on,
button.
John.
Thought I did. Oh, John Wilton to Eucalyptus. It's primarily a safety issue. We've had multiple instances of almost head-ons. We've lived there for 14 years, so we have a lot of examples of that happening. In fact, when Robert was out there, by coincidence, my wife was nearly hit by a truck. Because as you come up one side or the other, you can't see the coming. And Robert parked his car in what is now a legally spot, and the truck can't get past because, as he pointed out, we have a width issue and we have a sight issue. So I think, as you said, there's sort of no option, but we have to do something. And to Sandy's point, the 90% of the residents of the street want this done, and there's no one in opposition. The only people that didn't sign it were reclusing themselves for different reasons. So, you know, you have an overwhelming community that is supporting this because of safety issues. It's sight and width. You can't get a fire truck down there if you park on that incline. We're all supportive of it. We like the proposal from the staff, the red line. You have 90% of the residents supporting it. The signage on one side and red on the other is probably adequate. As he said, it removes the problem of enforcement because the community came together around the construction project, but that wasn't the reason for it. If 105 goes ahead, we're going to have pickups parked all over that place, and we won't be able to exit or enter without running the risk of a head-on. So, you know, it sort of brought the community together, but it's been a long-standing issue. And as some of the people who signed the petition, and I think Dexter wants to speak, noted, one of them was almost run over walking with their child because you can't see coming up the apex. So, there's a strong community support for this. So let me leave it there and hand over to Dexter.
Dexter Roberts, number 10 Eucalyptus. I'd like to share, first of all, I do support that which is proposed. And secondly, I'd like to share two instances of events that might shed some light. First was about last summer, and I don't think the committee is aware of this particular issue, and that is, as you come up the hill in the morning on Golden Gate and enter onto Eucalyptus, at certain times of the day, you're looking directly into the sun. You're blinded. In fact, I almost hit someone who was parked at the intersection there legally. And it was a dark car and I couldn't see it. Unfortunately, I was inching along. The second instance occurred just 2 weeks ago. A car, first of all, I have a granddaughter learning to drive, and we were entering Eucalyptus, coming up Golden Gate, entering Eucalyptus, and there was a car also legally parked right beginning at the red zone. Dog walkers. They were going to walk Eucalyptus. And at that moment in time, they were out of the car, the dog was on the leash. A car comes to exit Eucalyptus. The person exiting really had the right of way coming uphill, but be that as it may, behind us was a car coming up Golden Gate. We were locked in. And it just was a very difficult situation. Fortunately, it was resolved by the person that was trying to exit Eucalyptus back down, and it cleared the way. But the area it's a very difficult area, and it's a blind area as you exit onto Golden Gate from Eucalyptus. Anyway, two instances, just providing some support. Thank you.
Thank you. It seems like this. Oh, and the third one, please.
Hi, Deborah Wilton, 2 Eucalyptus. As John said, this is just a blatant safety issue. We've lived there for 14 years, and at least 5 or 6 times I've been in possible head-on collisions. And the reason why is just so simple. It's line of sight obstruction. And we've been for years tossing over this idea of approaching the traffic committee, and nobody did anything. Nobody did anything. It took somebody, just to say, this is what we need. And then it was coincidental that it had to do with the project at 105 developing, but just coincidental. This has been existing for a long time. I'd really like to see something done about it. And I think that what staff has proposed is a good solution to it. I think the signs, the painting one side of it red is essential, but I think the signs on the other side are really essential, because if it's painted red and there's no sign, they're going to park on the stop sign. And they already park on the stop sign side, which side is it? It's the stop sign side, the stop sign side. They already park there as well. And so with parking there, it forces an outgoing car into the head-on lane straight away. That's really all I want to say, that it's that clear and it's that dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Being a driver in Belvedere for probably 80 years, 70 years now, 65 years. That intersection has always puzzled me, that there wasn't some way to deal with it. And I think you've made a good decision as to how, it's still not going to be perfect, but it's better than the way it is now. So I thank you for your input.
I have to say with being a 16-year-old and having my best friend live at the very end of Eucalyptus, boy, was it fun though to go up and go and down. But it is dangerous. I have a question though, Robert, maybe for you about, the staff report talks about it going beyond 4 Eucalyptus. And it seems to me that the idea is that for it to go just to the Wilton's mailbox or something like that. It's not, and there are 2 Eucalyptus.
Yes, let me go ahead and answer that question. Again, I think I'll share a screen just so that we're all on the same page here. Okay, correct. So the left-hand side is that area where we're talking about installing the red curb zone. Really that issue of either road width or sight line extends beyond that area though. Effectively road width, as you can see, road width is not so much of an issue here in front of the parking garages, but again, we don't want to have contractors see, let's say, an end of a red zone or an end of a parking zone, and then think that they can park immediately in front of these garages because the road is actually pretty wide there. Somebody that isn't using their head, if a contractor, if they parked on that left-hand side, they could think, oh, a reasonable person can get around, there's no problem. So we're trying to preempt that possibility by extending the no parking zone on the left-hand side around that first turn.
Only no parking, but not the red curb.
Not the red curb, just the signage.
So Robert, how did you sign that? Virtual cliff on that side?
Yeah, I don't think technically that would be a problem. You auger a hole or you drill a hole and you fill it with concrete with a post. It can be a very steep hillside. I've seen places where you have retaining walls and the sign is literally posted on the retaining wall. So there's some options, but I'll leave that to Tony to figure out how to do it creatively.
Thank you all. I think that, yes, someone in the audience would like to speak?
I think, have we opened the public forum on this one? I believe we have. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe there's another solution. I think you had kind of a good idea. If we eliminate the 2 spaces on Madrona on this side, since that's what they want, could we go back and,
Closed item.
it is?
Yeah, we're just on the second item now. That was sort of a closed issue.
So I can't speak about that at all?
No, not on that issue. We closed the agenda on that after
So-
public comment.
That issue's been dealt
So
with.
when is it going to be open again where I mean, none of the neighbors are here. They don't even know. My neighbors are gone.
Yeah, we noticed the community around that entire area within. at
Pardon
least-
me?
We noticed the community within 200 feet of that entire area.
I know, but they're not here right now. That's the problem. They're not even here. My neighbors are gone. They're on vacation. They're gone. So that's it. It just seems a little like no one's really listening.
I think that was the only solution.
Well, I just would like those parking spaces widened so that now that we're eliminating 2 spaces, at least we could widen them. get
Oh,
the
When
spikes out.
your neighbors return, sit down with them, discuss what it is you wanted to do, and make a presentation to the committee, and we'll listen to it again. But for the time being, it's been dealt with.
I think, Harry, just on the second topic, so I'm familiar with that intersection too, and I agree with the recommendation here. So I think if we want to move forward, do you have any more thoughts on it? Yeah.
Yeah, and just for the public
item
record on
carries.
this one, I'm not seeing any hands raised to be able to talk publicly on item number 2. So I think we're okay to close the public hearing on that.
All 4 people voted yes for that. Thank you.
And just I don't mean to open it, I'm not opening up, but I believe that Paul suggested that, yes, we look at widening those spots on the other side. That was part of the proposal the city Gabe, so.
That's correct.
I believe that ends our discussion for today for the meeting. Thank you all for coming. The meeting, unless there's something else, is adjourned.
Thanks, Harry.
Thank you.